Listen to part of a psychology lecture. The professor is discussing psychoanalysis.
So, most people consider Erikson to be one of the most important figures in psychoanalysis. Unlike some other psychoanalysts, Erikson thought that we should be interested in the development of the person, of what happens as someone grows up. For Erikson, someone's personality was not fixed at any age. It changes as he or she grows older and, one hopes, wiser. This process of psychological development was the focus of much of Erikson's work. One of Erikson's most famous views was that there was a special moment in a person's development which he called identity crisis. You're probably familiar with the fact that sometimes people don't know exactly who we are or what we want to be. Erikson thought this was something that most of us pass through at some point, usually in our teenage years. A person in an identity crisis has no fixed sense of who he or she is. If you ask someone in such a crisis what she values or what's most important to her, she simply won't have an answer. A person like that, and that includes most of us at some stage of growth, simply does not know who she is. For Erikson, an account of the psychology of individuals that ignores the identity crisis is incomplete. Many other psychoanalysts focused on a person's development as a young child. But Erikson thought we had to focus on how a person developed later in life, for example, as a teenager, to fully understand human psychology. So, the identity crisis was a part of Erikson's theory of human development. Now, that theory. Yes?
Professor Nichols, did he happen to look at people from different cultures?
Well, in fact, he did. And getting ahead of ourselves, that was a big part of Erikson's project. He thought that other psychoanalysts were too focused on the psychology of a specific type of person, people in modern industrial civilization. So he researched many other cultures, such as the Yurok people of the American Northwest, and argues that one sees the identity crisis occurring in all of them. Now, for Erikson, we luckily don't stay in the identity crisis. Most of us figure out who we are and what's important to us. We then pass through other stages of development. Many of us eventually reach a stage that Erikson calls generativity. Generativity is a stage where we are more interested in what we can give back to the world than we are in what we can get. I'll give you an example. My brother, he's a really successful businessman. When he was young, he was focused on making as much money as he possibly could. And he was really good at it. Well, now that he's older, he's decided that he doesn't need any more money. Instead, he spent a lot of money to build a shelter for homeless people in his city. It's a really expensive project, and it takes up a lot of time, but my brother has decided that that's what he wants to do. According to Erikson, that would be a clear example of someone who has reached the generative stage. Erikson thought that this was a stage in life that took a lot of time and effort to reach, which is why he put it last in his stages of development. And you don't need to have a lot of money to reach this stage. It has more to do with age and wisdom. Try this question next time you're together with people of lots of different ages. Ask everyone what they would do if they won a lot of money in the lottery. The children will usually talk about all the toys they could buy, but the older people will talk about how they could use the money to help other people. According to Erikson, that would be because most of them have already reached the generative stage. Alright, so Erikson thought that these stages, such as the identity crisis and generativity, were central to an account of human development. But, psychologists love to disagree. So you might ask, is this the only theory of human development? This theory that we figure out who we are and eventually become generative? The answer is that there are plenty of rival theories. Lots of psychologists think that Erikson is completely wrong. But we should also ask, is there any good evidence against Erikson's theory? I'm going to argue that there's not. No psychological theory can be proven definitively, but there's lots of evidence for Erikson's theory and not much evidence against it. He thought that other psychoanalysts were too focused on the psychology of a specific type of person, people in modern industrial civilization. People in modern industrial civilization.